Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back, welcome to the channel as usual. So in today's video, we're going to be touching on the end game loop and exactly what you need to do, how to approach it to kind of like organize your day the way you see fit according to your own schedule, and at the same time explain a couple of systems in this game and also battle pass and living log and the value of those systems as well. Now, before we get into this video though, I highly recommend you go back and check the video that I uploaded yesterday if you haven't already, as it was basically a build up for this video, and I'll be leaving the link to that video down in the comments and I'll have it pinned so that you can have easy access to it as well. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's get right into it. So judging by the fact that you already watched the previous video and you have hit level 50 already, now you should have basically an endgame loop that is gonna be your progression and how it works. That is not me trying to lock you into any play style or anything like that. These are actually the things that you need to do, and you can organize it as you see fit as per your schedule once you get a better grasp of how these things work. So the first thing would be the contract. So as I touched on in the previous video, you have the contracts. Initially, we will be doing them in Watcher's Post or Pure Light Tower. Those are the only two places that can provide you with level 50 contracts. So you will have to do the contracts in either way or either places. Keep in mind though, if I was a staff user personally, I would go Pure Light Tower for the sake of the reason that if you take Pure Light Hill contracts whenever you can basically do AoEs with your thunder abilities in the water on the mobs that you need to kill, which makes it a lot easier for you. But yeah, so a few tips here that you need to be aware of. Let's say you hit level 50, you got the contracts now, whatever the amount is. Now, every day you will have to do 10 contracts, judging by the fact that you already got them to 0 at least once. Every day you get 10 contracts refreshed and they stack up to 60 with a few exceptions that I mentioned in the last video. So let's say I want to now take the contracts. My priority initially would be these ores, to be able to craft blue weapon growth stones, to upgrade them to purple growth stones as well, so that I can upgrade my purple weapons, tier 1 weapons that I'll be acquiring as well, which I'll touch upon in a second. So that is going to be your number one priority alongside the armor and then the accessories. Now do keep in mind, those two here, you would need to play it by ear. If you feel like when you're crafting you are now getting low on these or getting low on those, that's when you are going to start crafting these. But hold the thought, because that will be also included in the battle pass segment. So let's say I'm going to be starting with this. Now I want this, so I accept it. Always accept one contract, then refresh. And the reason for this is you are looking for something called the lucky pocket. Hopefully we get to see it. So I accepted the weapon, no weapon here. So I want to get the armor or accessory. There's no armor, there's only the skill growth, there's only the accessory. So let's say I'm going to take the accessory for the sake of it. Normally you should try to take places like the same. For example, here it's always Phonos and Ruins. So it's better to try to go for everything in one place if possible, depending on the contracts you want to take as well. So here, for example, this is tier 2 Phonos Basin, which will give you one additional rubric. So you take that obviously because it's tier 2. Even if, by the way, it's gonna give me armor or accessory, I should take it even if my priority is weapon, just for the sake of the fact that it will give me higher benefits. So I refresh again, same thing, repeat. So I take this one and repeat. So you keep doing that until you're full, 5 out of 5, and at some point you might get lucky and get one item called Lucky Pouch. You would notice it's a purple square with like a bag icon on it. You need to be sure to take that one every time you can. And the reason for this is because that will grant you something called the weekly contracts, which I touched upon in the last video as well, that you can buy weekly from this merchant or any Sundries merchant in any city once every week, and you get 6 a week. So that is 6 contracts per each dungeon in the world. So this is why it's really, really important to get. So that is the first thing you're going to be doing, which is your contracts at level 50. The second thing you're going to be looking to do is your co-op dungeons, which are the level 50 dungeons. And that is where I was talking about the purple weapons. So your tier 1 weapons in most cases are going to be accessible through these level 50 dungeons. In some cases also through world bosses, obviously. But even if you have weapons that you will access through world bosses, initially it will be a lot easier to get your purple weapons from here due to the milestone, and I'm going to touch on the milestone at the end of this video. So you will be doing these level 50 dungeons to see what you need in here, whether it's gear or weapon or whatever it may be. And that is like where you will grind. As you can see, this one consumes 300 per run. And do be aware that you get 900 refreshes a day. Meaning, if you run this dungeon 3 times, that is already 900 tokens. However, if let's say you have 900 points, which is the daily refresh, then you run 3 dungeons and that will take you down to 0. You can still enter the dungeon one last time and still open the chest, which will take you down to negative 300. The moment you are in the negative zone, even if it's negative 1, negative 1000, it doesn't matter. The moment you touch the negative zone, you can no longer open any chests at all anymore until you get in the positive or the 0 zone again. So once you get to 0 or above, you can open the chests. So what this essentially means is once you get to the negative 300, the next day you're going to get 900, which will put you at 600, meaning you're going to be running 3 dungeons a day realistically. So be aware of that. You will be doing those as your daily as well. It's up to you what to start with first. You can start with contracts, you can start with dungeons. However, there is something that you need to be aware of: the open world dungeons. So you have 4 open world dungeons eventually after the milestones unlock them that you will be doing all the time. Initially, you'll only have Silas Abyss, which is the one you'll be doing, but as they unlock, eventually you will have Silas Abyss, 5th and 6th floor, you will have Shadowed Crypt, you will have Sordoma Island, and you will also have Sanctum of Desire. Those 4 dungeons are going to be your weekly contract dungeons. Do keep in mind, now you have these abyssal contract tokens. In order to grind in those open world dungeons, you need to have these tokens, as otherwise you will not get any Solent or barely any Solent, and you will not get any drops, because in order to even acquire a drop in those dungeons, you would notice here that it shows like this icon next to the item here implies that you need to have basically these tokens to be able to be eligible even to get those drops. Obviously, as you run those dungeons, you want to be running alongside your weekly contracts that you purchase every single week. So be it always like whenever you do any of those dungeons, run the contracts and clear the contracts. I would recommend running the contracts, clear them, then move to the next one where you have contracts. So not just grind if you have contracts to do. And once you finish all the weekly contracts, that will consume all of these points. The reason I'm mentioning these points here is because the way to gain these points is 3 methods. Initially, we will have 2. The first one is the contracts. As you can see, each contract provides you with 50. The other method is the co-op dungeons, which is the tier 1 dungeon that you'll be doing at level 50. That also grants you 500 per run. The reason I mentioned this is that is exactly what's going to come into play on how you organize your day. Because if you are low on these tokens, you can basically just do the contracts and then do the instance dungeons. And by the time you acquire more tokens, you can go do the open world. On the other hand, if you've been slacking on these tokens and you log in today, and let's say you're sitting at 19k or even like myself right now, 20k, you realistically don't want to do the contracts, and because you will not get these. The same for the instance dungeons. So it's better to just wait and do these open world dungeons first to lower this number, and then do the contracts and instance dungeons to acquire more of these tokens. In the old patches, we used to get them in the inventory, but I don't think that is the case anymore. So take that with a grain of salt. Okay, so the next point we have in here is the events, which once again is tied to the milestone. And I'm pretty sure you've heard that a lot. Milestone this, milestone that. I'm going to be explaining that in a minute. So whenever you log into the game for the first time, this is how your mini-map is going to look like, or your map is going to look like. You simply click on this icon over here, which will show you the menu, and you go to the timetable, and these are where the events are going to be taking place. Initially, obviously, it's not going to look like this at all. It's going to be way more empty. And you will have events that happen across like different times. You will see which one is peace, which one is PvP. So you have like co-op, you have PvE, which is peace. Co-op being like something you work in with groups of like everyone on the server that attends that event. And then you have Dominion, which will put you in a PvP faction, red, blue, and green randomly. And then you can team up with whoever in those factions and fight against the other factions. It's kind of like fun, small scale-ish PvP. You also have the world bosses, which are like both peace and PvP. Now, one thing to note is that you can do multiple PvP ones as long as they are still up, but peaceful ones, you can only do one each segment. So let's say this one is going to happen at 2 p.m. You need to make a choice which peaceful one you want to do, because when you get there on the time, there is a gate open there for 5 minutes before the boss spawns. Once it hits the 5 minutes mark, so once it's 5 minutes, it will close those gates. And then if you are not in the gate, you can no longer do the peace boss for that segment. Or if you are already inside, you'll finish the boss and then come out and you cannot do the other peaceful ones. The PvP ones, however, are not in a gate. They are in the open world. Meaning, as long as it is alive, even after you've done the peaceful one, you can go PvP and try to contest those PvP bosses. Arc bosses, on the other hand, happen once every week. So you have like Tevent that happens once a week, and you have Billender that happens once a week as well. Obviously, these are Korean days, Korean time zones. We might have a different thing, but regardless, they happen once a week each, and those are the first two we're going to have at some point. Now, obviously, as I mentioned initially, you're not going to have any of those because of the milestone. So what the heck is the milestone? The milestone is simply a system that is put in place to kind of like stop players, or not really stop players, but more like kind of build a pace for the server so that you don't just like exceed the pace the game is meant to be played by far. So what this essentially means is that you will have these milestones. Some of them will be the whole server needs to do, which is, for example, reach level 10. Then you need your server to have 100 players reach level 10. However the 100 players are, it counts for everybody. Everybody will get the title, and we are all going to be getting the Making History title. In other cases, you'll have Defeat the Wolves. This is also across the whole server. In other cases, you would have things for your guild. Your guild needs to do this event. So these are milestones that happen. Some take like a couple hours, some take 24 hours. And as long as you perform these milestones and complete them, you acquire the reward that it offers, whatever it may be. And as you clear them, you will notice they unlock different events. So initially, for example, it will unlock the wolf hunting contest. If we go off of what we're used to from Korean server and other betas as well, it was basically within the 2 hours mark that we got to this point, or 3 hours mark. So these basically are slowly unlocking content, where bosses, arc bosses, boon stones, rift stones, which are the GVG content. So you are not going to have all the content in one go in terms of open world. But in terms of an instance dungeon, once you hit 50, this is available right off the bat. This has nothing to do with milestone. So be aware of the milestone and pace yourself accordingly. Obviously, initially, you're not going to have all those dungeons open because those also fall under the line of milestones. But as far as I remember, Silas Abyss first and second floor do open fairly early on as well. Now, the second thing is, or the third system that you need to be aware of, is the auction house. Auction house is like every game where people sell and buy the items that they get in the game. Keep in mind, items are not simply sellable just because you acquire them. I might try to make a video about this at some point, like to explain what items are sellable and how to sell them. But overall, for now, just be aware this is where you sell and buy items, and this is where you'll make Lucent. Keep in mind, though, the difference here is that the Lucent is a cash shop currency, which means I can basically open my wallet, use my credit card, and buy this currency, and then buy these items. But at the same time, as a person playing the game, I could also sell items and make this currency as well, which means I could make this currency without having to pay money if I know what I'm doing. Which, by the way, I'll have a video about this and how to make Lucent as a free-to-play player, so keep an eye out for that one. Obviously, you can use that Lucent as well for the special shop, which means you can buy battle pass, you can buy the leveling log, you can buy all the kind of stuff, even cosmetics, by simply playing the game. You don't necessarily need to spend money to be able to buy it. And now, speaking of the battle pass is, in my personal opinion, where things become really mandatory. Battle pass is very, very, very high value initially, and even as you progress, the value becomes even bigger. You can tell it gives you like growth stones, skill books, thousands of points of open world dungeon grind, Solent. Like, it just gives you so much value and things that you will even know about in the future that I'm not going to touch on to not bore you with for now, like runes and all that stuff. So overall, it's just like very, very, very high value that I recommend if you can get it, whether through swiping or selling items in the game. It is such high value that you wouldn't miss out on. And same applies to the leveling log, even though to some people leveling log is not much of a high value. Leveling log is a one-time purchase, by the way. you will buy this from 1 to 50, for example, and then 3 months later or 4 months later or whatever it may be, we might get Talandre, and then you can buy the next one. But overall, it also provides you with some material, including growth stones. Keep in mind those colors change as you progress through the game. So initially those are gray. As you level up further and you are at a stage of the game where you don't need gray anymore, it provides you with greens, then it provides you with blues, and so on and so forth. So it scales kind of with your leveling, but at the same time, the rewards that you get out of it kind of like, they're not the biggest deal breaker, but they give you that slight edge that you could put you a little bit above everybody else. So those are basically the battle pass and the leveling log. Important thing to notice as well, or to note, sorry, is the Amitoys and the morphs now are account wide, meaning if I buy any Amitoy in the game or morph in the game, keeping in mind a lot of the Amitoys and morphs are unlockable through gameplay, but some are also unlockable through the cash shop, which means you can buy them from here. If I buy any Amitoy, cosmetic, morph, whatever it may be, that will unlock it across my entire account. So all of my account will have all of these Amitoys and morphs and all that kind of stuff. The reason I'm mentioning this is because Amitoys and morphs offer perks. So whenever you get a lot of Amitoys, for example, the more Amitoys you collect, the more perks you unlock. And those can go from like Solent bonus, XP bonus, Abyssal contract efficiency, which means as you grind the open world, you consume less, meaning you can grind more for more items. So overall, it's very beneficial to your account to acquire as many Amitoys and morphs as you possibly can, as they do provide some perks as well. So this marks the end of this video. I tried my best to make it as short as possible, hopefully also as digestible as possible, because this is my intention for these videos that I'm making these days. And do be aware that the next video will be also about your gear progression and how to go around gearing up and the process of gearing, especially that there will be milestone gatekeeping you from some items, so what to do regarding that. And also I'll be having a video made to follow up with that of how to make Lucent as a free-to-play player. So definitely don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell notification to be notified for those videos. If you've made it this far, thank you guys for watching as usual. Global is coming out soon. Hope you enjoy it, and until the next one, peace.